Okay, so big warm welcome, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce the session today. My name is Mark van den Einde, and our session today is titled Source Principles, and we're going to be rethinking ownership, leadership, money, and much, much more. Our guest today is Peter Koenig. Hello, Peter.
Hello,
A warm
Mark,
welcome.
and
And Peter
how
will
are
be
you?
in conversation with Amrita Singh, a dear friend. Hello, Amrita.
You.
Now, before I give a bit more introduction to Amrita and Peter, I'd just like to give a little bit of background on why do these resource sessions exist? Where do they come from? So about a year and a half ago, eight of us, and I think many of us are here today on the call, came together around an idea called Soulful Organizations. And so the eight of us, we felt that it was time to bring deeper, more soulful work into the organizational context as a way to help organizations thrive in these changing times, as a way for organizations to unleash the creativity, the potential, the innovation that is often sort of lying dormant there. So we went out and started to talk about soulful organizations in a very bold and unapologetic way. And we were met with very various kind of responses. So some people were very excited and said, "Finally, this is what we're looking for." Now, of course, that percentage is relatively small, but it has allowed us to do some really amazing work. And then, of course, there are the people who say, "What are you talking about? This is nonsense." And that percentage is actually much smaller than you would expect. And then there's a big sort of middle ground of people who are curious and intrigued and who say, "There's something here, there's something important here for us to pay attention to, but we're not quite ready to say yes yet. We don't understand it well enough. We need to wrap our heads around what this is and how it's going to benefit us and what exactly does it entail." So that is what triggered and gave us, the inspiration to launch these resource sessions. And this is the sixth one. So we've been doing this for, I guess, almost a year now. And we've had some amazing guests on, and we've had a lot of great content that has been shared. And again, the purpose is to really raise awareness and help more and more people understand what the benefits are. And so, we went through the why of soulful organizations in many of the conversations, right? And for example, Amy Fox spoke about
Yeah,
evolutionary pressure as a
yeah,
very interesting concept. The idea that the status quo is just not sustainable anymore, and that we are, under pressure, if you like, to evolve and to grow and to rethink the way that we show up. So we spoke about the why, we spoke about the what. What does soulful organizations actually mean? And there we went into presence, intuition, deep listening, sensing the emerging potential. We spoke about love. So we had many, great insights around the what. And we also spoke about the how. So there, Laura talked about how our individual transformation impacts other people's transformation. So rather than trying to change a system overnight, start with ourselves and allow that to ripple out. So we had a lot of great insights on the how. And that brings us to today. And the one that's left is the who. So who is a soulful organization, or who carries the soul of an organization? And what does that actually mean? And is it one person? Is it many people? And what is it? Yeah, what is the who around soulful organizations? And so that brings us to today, and that also is a nice segue to introduce Peter Koenig, who is, I would say, very much a visionary in this field, a philosopher. For the last 40 years, he has been researching, writing, speaking, training around the concept of source principles. He's also done a lot of work around money, but specifically the energy around money and how do we relate to money? What is our relationship to money as energy? And he's written the book, The 30 Lies about Money. And he's helped me. 10 years ago we met in person, and Peter was, very generous in helping me understand uh, the source as it relates to who I am in my business and what it meant for me at the time. And it was super, super insightful. So yeah, very warm welcome, Peter. And then
Thank you.
also I would like to introduce Amrita as a dear friend, as a soulful partner, spiritual partner, collaborator, co-creator, and much, much more. And so it's no surprise that Amrita is anchoring this session today. She is the initiator of the resource sessions, which is, these series of sessions. She's also the founder of Back to Source coaching organization, and she is the source holder of the Soulful Organizations initiatives. So over the last year, she has gotten in touch with Peter's work, and she's benefited a lot from his insights. And so it just made a lot of sense for her to lead the conversation today. So I'm going to hand it over to both of you now and invite everyone just to sit back and enjoy. There will be time for questions. So the last 30 minutes will be interactive, and you'll have the chance to, ask Peter and Amrita any questions that you would like. So just take note of them. You can share them in the chat as you go along. And yeah, over to you. Enjoy. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. And such an honor, really, to be here. Peter, when Mark introduced me to the whole idea of source and, helped me claim this sense of source for everything that he just named right now, it took, it wasn't an easy space for me to land into. And one of the main reasons for that is that when when I hear the word source, and many people, I'm sure, in this call, we normally associate the source with like a universal energy, source, God, divinity, and all of that. And so to look at it and to claim myself as the source felt like quite uh, like egoistic in one way, and that's far from where I wanted to be or see myself as. So I'm really would like to open this conversation from really understanding from you about how do you understand this relationship between what I say these two different sources. I understand in essence it's not that there's no difference, but how do you hold these two sources?
Well, thank you for this question, and hello everybody. And I'm seeing a number of familiar faces here, and who I'm sure will help me in many different ways um, during our session here today. So the word source for me came in a very practical way, that I was working with a strategic consulting group in Boston in the early 80s, and the founder. And this was the terminology being used for founders in Boston at the time, was source. And I rather liked that. I just picked it up. I wasn't really reflecting on it, but I picked it up because it somehow spoke to me more than sort of the linear aspect of just a founder. It sort of symbolically and felt like more rounded and more fluid, which I felt, a founder needs to be. So I just used the word source for founder. And when I was doing my research to see how founders realize their projects, I would just use the word source. And so my reference to it was always to a person to start off with. But you know, of course, I was aware that the word, one can't patent the word, and I've never tried to. But I always was aware, of course, that people are using it in very many different ways for universe, for God, for this this power which is universal, which is beyond our understanding, actually. And so the connection for me is that a founder, when he or she actually creates their project or initiative or enterprise, is usually following some kind of calling, feeling called to do something. And you could say, well, who's calling them and what is calling them? And so I refer to this as your inner source somewhere, but it's actually connected to something which is greater than we're really capable of being able to understand or to explain. So that's the connection I make between source as a person and the inner source or larger source that we're talking about. That's my explanation.
Thank you. Thank you. That feels so nice and reassuring as well, that it's not feeding any egocentric kind of space, but it's more a surrendering into that inner source or inner calling, like you refer to.
Yes, but as you're using the word ego here, I would say that the source does need to be in touch with their ego as well. So it's not totally unegocentric. Let me put it this way. I think if one tries and get rid of one's ego, which many people do, many so-called spiritual people want to put their ego aside, I think that's not very spiritual for me. You need to have a certain relationship to your ego to be able to realize your project.
Nice. Thank you for saying that. In terms of, maybe we shift the conversation to, before we get into source, it would be wonderful to hear how you define ego as well. That is serving the source in some way.
Oh, I have never thought of a definition, Amrita. I tried to define it. But let me say it's carrying a kind of energy of manifestation, which is being embodied. And I would even say a certain degree of arrogance, positive arrogance. Let me put it that way.
All these words that are coming to me is like, okay, stay open to it, like let it land. It's perfect, positive arrogance, the way that you share it. I see both the ego and the source as like two sides of the same coin, actually, not very different. It just depends on which side you choose to flip and, how you choose to
Absolutely.
respond to that space. But
Absolutely. So it's not against surrender, of course.
say that again?
It's not, the reverse for me would be what you were talking about, surrender. So it's not against surrender, of course not.
It's not
But
surrender.
no, I mean, one needs to surrender and have a certain degree of ego at the same time. That's what I'm suggesting.
Hold them both together.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then what would you say then is this relationship between, since I'm holding source energy and ego manifestation, the energy of manifestation together, then what do you see as the role of humility and groundedness in this whole endeavor?
Well, I don't see the exclusion of any of our of any parts of ourselves or our identity in the manifestation process. So that's why I'm maybe having this little dialogue with you now, because I'm not trying to put any part of ourselves out of the window, because I believe that all of us is needed. All of our parts of our identity and ourselves are actually needed, depending on the circumstances that we're facing, in order to realize our calling. That's what I feel is the deepest aspect that we can seek in terms of our spirituality.
Nice. This is all new information that's coming for me, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to this recording myself again for it to really land. But I understand the space of that you're pointing towards is that of real integration rather than any form of separation of any kind, even between ego and source.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Good. Then, if I've got that, I can shift a little bit of gears into the space of leadership because I know that there are a number of people here who are also from that space, and her source and how it relates to leadership. And you speak to the source of an initiative, leading that initiative forward. So whilst we recognize that and that role of that leader matters so much, what would you say is this the responsibility then of the leader who is the source of any initiative?
So, you'll hear my responses as fairly radical.
Yes.
So as far as I'm concerned, the source of an initiative is 100% responsible. And I can give a rational reason for that.
Please.
Is that when you have a calling, and we're talking about like the global thing, they're creating something out of nothing. So when you or I create something out of nothing, then we need to take full responsibility for it. We can't put that responsibility onto anybody else because nobody else has been there at the moment of its inception and its first step in realization. And that's why I say, if I create something, I have to be 100% responsible for it. I can't say, well, you're responsible, and just because we're working together on it, I'm no longer 100%. I'm still 100% responsible for everything that I create. And that's how I hold the responsibility of source.
So it's like I may have large teams, I may have run a big organization, but if I claim the source of that whole initiative, the buck stops at me no matter what.
Yes, the founder, if you like, I'm calling source, has the responsibility. I talk about it, the field, which is the field of energy or the field of influence, which we tend to call organization. That is the 100% responsibility for what you might call the global source, holding that whole field. And this is where the source work starts to get interesting because we start to look at what's the role and the responsibility of the other people.
Yes.
Because no global source can manifest their project on their own. We always need other people, even sole traders, let's call them, who don't have an organizational team. They still need their clients. So nobody is working who sets up an enterprise is working in a vacuum. We need each other. We're all interrelated.
And then can you speak a little bit about that integration of how this responsibility is held but yet distributed amongst many?
Yeah. Yes, very, very gladly. Because here there's lots of confusion related to the word collaboration. So what I've experienced, and I think what most people experience in terms of collaboration at work, is what we've all been educated in, I would say, is like a linear process. I just recently came across an image, a video of how they make mooncakes in China, a mooncake factory, which I do recommend people to have a look at. It's really funny. You see one person there's this dough being created by a machine, and then it gets to a certain place, and there's somebody there pouring with his hands powder onto this little patty and passes it on. And then somebody else is doing something else, and then somebody else is doing something else, and then it goes to a machine, and then somebody else is doing something else. It's like a linear process, which we tend to think of in terms of collaboration and then a product at the end of the production line. Now, this works very well for production of products. And we are all benefiting from all the products we buy in the supermarket of these processes. But people tend to apply this when it comes to creative processes, and then it falls short. And we haven't been taught really how to work together with other creative people. So to answer your question, what my research showed is that in creative collaborations, there is, I'd like to share this image of a person who creates, the first person creating a global field. And then the other people who join, they usually come in because they are either attracted by the passion of the vision of the first person or for some other reason. And they create fields within the global field where they are then sources as well. But there's an order, and this is the thing that I researched. There's a natural order which you don't really need to know about source work about, because it works if you have a group of people in a kitchen producing food. There's nobody there sort of trying to figure out organizationally what to do. If it's done intuitively, one person does that, the next person does that. People take responsibility for their different parts, their different fields. And if it really works well, nobody's stepping on each other's toes trying to tell somebody cutting vegetables how they should cut carrots or something like that. So this is how source work. Everybody knows how to do this. Let me just say, everybody's a source in the world and everybody knows it. I've just put it into language in a description, that's all. Particularly for enterprises, because enterprises are still trying to create collaboration using these linear principles that I was talking about before.
So when you say that, like, I love the example that you give of a kitchen, because that's something that I can also relate with quite easily, having been there several times myself. But at least the idea of, what you're cooking together is known, and then each person does their bit without really having to be nudged in any direction. But when you
That's
bring
right.
the analogy into an enterprise, the giving of nudge and direction and setting things in order, so to speak, gets a little bit messy, I would say. And so how do the source principles, or how does your way of being and thinking inform that?
So out of total respect for the creation, the creative potential of every single individual in the team and what they are manifesting, and seeing that they have their respective autonomous fields, which must not be interfered with. So the problem that you see in what you're referring to in enterprises is that the notion of source is lost. It's not lost in science. In science, there is a total acknowledgement of sources. It's not lost in literature, where you have to, it's natural and normal to acknowledge and recognize the source of something. But in our enterprise world, in our organization, some reason this has got totally lost. So now you have people watching what other people are doing and feeling that they have a right, an equal right to have a say in things where actually, from a source perspective, they don't have any right at all to say. And this is what creates confusion, chaos, conflict. And the problem, Anrita, is that this has become so normalized and normal that people just say, oh, well, this is just normal. They don't think that there's anything needs to be done with that. Of course, if you come with a source perspective, a source lens, and you look at that, you say, my goodness, so much waste of energy in our companies, so much waste of time, and so much waste of money, because there's not a respect for the orders, for source and the order, the natural order that you'd find in your kitchen, or you'd find in like an orchestra or a jazz combo. I like to give those as the best examples, actually.
Yeah, and I'm sure that with your research and with all the work that you've done, you've also found the antidote to all of this. And is that when you say sacred order, is that what you mean by that, or is there something else?
No, that's you describe it very well. I'm not planning that. I'm not saying that I have a panacea here, because to transform what's going on is quite a challenge. But we can do very good work. What you refer to as all natural order is one of the things, or sacred order. The actual word for sacred order, many people are really, really, really allergic to, and I'm trying to rehabilitate at the moment. The actual etymology, the word for it is hierarchy. And unfortunately, many people are allergic to the word, and they misunderstand what hierarchy is about. Hierarchy, if you understand it, is just about sacred order. And all indigenous peoples and religions and so forth, they kind of respect it. And when it's respected, it works. The problem, and this is the problem we see in our companies and enterprises, is that it's become associated with power over other people instead of responsibility for a field and the order within the field. So in fact, in terms of its actual original meaning, it's got nothing to do with trying to control other people. That's where people are allergic today, because there's so much abuse happening in our companies and our enterprises, which are attributed to what people call hierarchy, but actually it's got nothing to do with this original sense. So they throw the baby out with the water, with the bathwater, and say we need to abolish abuse. So we'll abolish the hierarchy, we'll flatten the structure. And they may be successful in flattening structures, but they're not successful in abolishing the power mechanisms there. And that's, there's a lot going on in that area right now, where my practitioners are doing a lot of, some of them are here in the room, like Sebastian, are doing a lot of correction and helping a lot to correct that.
I must say that I'm also party to that lot of people who became allergic, and still am to a large extent, to hierarchy, and sacred order seems like a much nicer term to embrace than hierarchy, for sure. And the way that I see it is that it's a large part of it is to do with how we've grown up and how we have experienced hierarchy, and how
Yes,
we experienced, let's say, the misuse of hierarchy.
absolutely.
Therefore, I would sense that there needs to be, just like this normalizing needs to be given away with, and need to state that piece upfront and acknowledge the presence of source. There is a need to reinstate maybe that sacred order. And once it's reinstated, you could say, oh, that was really hierarchy that we were trying to bring back into the space, right?
So you're really speaking to my heart, Amrita, because in the beginning, when I started noticing this allergy, I thought, well, we'll change the language a bit, so that it's more acceptable. But we've come to a point, full circle to a point now, where I feel it's really necessary to rehabilitate the word, explain it clearly, and people who are allergic, actually what they need to do is work on their relationship to power, because that's the problem. So there's been lots of wounding, but the wounding is on both sides. It's from the people who think, egotistic leaders are sociopaths and psychopaths, and they've been wounded by them, therefore we'll throw out the hierarchy. But at the same time, not really recognizing their positions on the other side as being submissive and allowing themselves to be wounded. So, that's the other side of that power mechanism, power dynamic. And of course, they also need to work on their relationship to power, because it's just the other side of the same coin.
Yeah. So if you were to remove power, the power dynamic from hierarchy, and keep hierarchy in its purest form, how would you say that it serves organizations, enterprise?
Great question. Because if you look at my field, for example, my field of practitioners, and what I do is I want everybody to be in their full 100% power around me.
Mm.
And more or less, that's what's happening. So, I insist that nobody in my field, I don't want anybody around me who doesn't love what they do. And I want them to be in full power, loving what they do. And I don't want anybody to be obeying me because I say something, and it may not be clear just because of who I am as the source of my field. So I invite everybody around me to challenge me and my clarity. And I give myself and I give everybody in my field permission to challenge each other on clarity, because if you take decisions, if anybody takes decisions without clarity, without not just knowing what to do, but knowing that they know what to do, you're going to have, bad decisions, bad actions, and they're going to have to make corrections at some time. So where there is equality, it's not at the level of micro decision making in a particular field. It's the equality which everybody wants is in the ability to challenge each other. Right to the, let's say, top, if you see the hierarchy at the top, right to the top of the hierarchy. So I love it when people challenge me, because it helps me to see whether I'm clear or not. If I'm clear with my decisions, and as a source, this applies to every single source. When you're clear in your decision and you vocalize your decision, what the next step is, people are going to follow that, whether they understand what you want or your vision is or whatever, because they will sense the energy and the attraction of that. And if you're not clear, if you're in doubt, then you're going to be challenged anyway.
Yeah.
And the relationship, one of my source principles, the relationship to doubt is very important in our field, because you will know, and other source leaders know, that actually our chronic situation is doubt. Most of the time, I say 80% of the time, we're in doubt because we don't know what to do. Your egotistic leaders that you were referring to before, who have a sort of false ego, try and pretend that they know what to do all the time, but actually they really know that they don't know what to do most of the time. None of us really know what to do most of the time. But the point is that when we do know, and we know that we know, then when we're so clear, then there's no alternative but just to take that step. And my experience and all the feedback over the years I've received from people in these source positions is that when they are that clear, people will just follow. You don't need to have so-called democratic decision making. It looks like democratic decision making, but it's actually the source with their clarity which is providing that sort of leadership at that moment.
Nice. And what did you say? Reinstating hierarchy in my life, from looking at it from a space of clarity at one end, and at the other end of like empowering, not really powering over, like you shared, right? And
I don't actually like the word empower, Amrita.
okay. I'm going with a full new vocabulary this time.
I don't like it because it gives the impression that you can give the power to somebody else. So, or that's what many people have the impression of.
Yeah.
But I understand what you mean, because what it's about is just creating the conditions where they find their own power. That's
Yeah.
really what it's about. And it needs to be very clear that nobody can give the power to anyone else. All you can do, and the best you can do, is give impulses and maybe help to create conditions where they find their own power, authority, and of course the three things come together: responsibility, power, and authority.
Yes, I agree. We're saying the same
I
thing
know.
for sure. The sense of the way that I look at empower is also for people to step into their power. And
Yeah.
you can't take away from that power, and you can't even give power to anybody else as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Apology.
no, not at all. Not at all. It's nice to have clarity and to be able to be challenged on it, like you just shared.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting. But another dynamic that I want to just shine the light on, and this especially in India, and we have a number of people who are joining in from India, is that family-run organizations and family-run enterprise is quite a big thing. I'm not aware of how it is across the world, but in India it's like fairly large and huge, and some very large organizations even till today. They may have global presence, but are still held with the family. So when you look at it look at the source principles from this family-run organization, how would you say that they help in navigating this generational transition?
So just to say to your first point, family businesses are the mainstay, I think, throughout the world.
Okay.
And where I am in Switzerland, certainly here, and it's an extremely, here in Switzerland, I don't know how it is in India, but there are going to be tens of thousands of family successions, family business successions in the coming years. And we're tens of thousands. We're in a pretty small country. We have a population of about 9 million at the moment, nothing like India.
Yeah.
So this is a major, major, major subject. And one of the most important things to see is actually from a source perspective is who is the source of the business and who is the source of the family, and not mix those two things in terms of the natural order flowing in these two entities. And that's where I can see lots of confusion nowadays because, historically, I guess it's the same, could be the same in India. It should be the eldest son who should be the successor.
Yes.
It might, and from a source perspective, it might turn out to be the youngest daughter, or it might be somebody even outside the family. Um, so, we're dealing with cases like that to identify, first of all, who is the source of the business, which is not always easy to identify. Also, not always easy to identify who is really the source of the family. But this is a whole other question.
Yeah.
But talking about this, yeah.
But the sense is like in India, yes, and I'm sensing like it's probably everywhere. It's like the source of the family, and then it passes on to the eldest son mostly. But maybe the eldest son is also the source of the business if he continues to grow and evolve, right? So is there like relationship between how what the source needs to do to continuously evolve so that the source continues and that legacy that has been built by the family together continues to stay alive and true to the original source.
So the legacy, and if you look at, indigenous peoples and cultures, you'll see they sort of do this automatically. The succession, which you're talking about, the legacy, the succession, always, without exception, passes from one hand to one hand. Never a group, either from a group or to a group. It's always an individual person, and it passes from one hand to one hand. And the process of passing is incredibly sensitive, delicate, and important. It's like it can be ritualized, but actually it's so intimate. It's an intimate process like a wedding or something like that. something very, very special. So when this happens, and in old families, the preparation for this might be years, really years. Nowadays, it can still be years, but it can also happen much quicker. But the essence of the transfer or the transmission is still the same as it has been forever in the human past, from one hand to one hand. So that's what we really look at, and this tends to be, unfortunately, rather ignored. In succession processes, the experts tend to be looking at the shares and the assets and the transfer of those material, let's call them material things, and less upon the transfer, the source succession, which actually is primary. It's one of the things is that when the handover passes well, the transfer of the assets is easy. The legal questions are easy. But very often in these family businesses, they're trying to do it in reverse. They're trying to transfer the assets first, trying to transfer, go through all the legal processes and think that that might solve any family issues between siblings or stuff. And it never does, of course. It can't. So this is why, in my view, this is one of the big areas that we're dealing with in our source work, is this whole process of succession, trying to bring it in to the financial and legal fields, actually. So there's more expertise on this as well.
I really feel so much gratitude for you and all the people associated with you who are doing this work, because even just the way that you shared this, there's like so much sacredness to it, and it just takes away from all the feuds that you hear about and read about. If they were to just embrace just just the sacredness in which you explained this as well. So that's gratitude for your work.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Amrita. I mean, it's a long-term work. I mean, I've been, as you heard from Mark, I've been on this for 40 years, but it'll probably take another couple of hundred before it's really integrated. It's a long process we're dealing with, and one of the problems we're really up against is that the scientific and industrial revolution, with the transformation of material into products, has been so successful that our forefathers in the last 300 years have been really helpful in the products they produced, and incredible success. And we tend to are trying to reproduce those same processes to be successful now in areas which are no longer to do with material. That's the problem we're facing. That we're dealing with digital and immaterial stuff. Even money is now totally immaterial. And we're applying the same old processes because that's how we've been educated in. And our structures of doing that are like granite in many cases. And so those of us that are working with this are facing very often this granite as we enter these companies or enterprises, and are trying to do our best to sort of soften it up a bit with more what people like to call feminine principles now. And, we're making some headway, but it's not necessarily terribly quick.
But
you're doing this work too.
Yes, you all are. And like you said, it's that convergence. And as long as we continue to sow the seeds and nurture it, it will blossom in its right time.
Yes.
The other piece that I'm like curious about and wanted to, invite your wisdom into is that there's one piece of family, but there's also this sense of the world becoming more and more borderless. And, with organizations and enterprises spread across different geographies and people working in this matrix kind of reporting, where there's no direct reporting sometimes to people, it's across. And in some of the work that we've done has been in this what is being referred to as global capability centers that have been built. And India has become a large ecosystem also for these global capability centers. So what I wanted to ask you is that what does it mean to stay connected to the source in these distributed systems?
Mm. So thank you for the question. I haven't heard of these global capability systems
Centers.
yet. Centers, thank you. But wherever there is an entity like this, and it doesn't matter how small or how big it is, there must have been somebody, one person, who had the idea for it, who took the first step. And so wherever we find ourselves dealing with a question like this, we always want to know first, and we do the detective work to figure out who was it.
Mm.
And that is key to being able to answer a question like you're just coming up with. Because that person is like holding that whole center, and that person must have a vision for what they wanted to create in taking the first step and attracting everybody else into that center and what that center is going to be doing. And that's the thing to really discover. What is that vision? And the vision, is really interesting. In my research, what I discovered is that it's extremely, extremely rare, if not at all, that the vision is about something like money.
100%.
The calling of almost every entrepreneur is the creation of something which has nothing to do with money. It's usually, a passion to suddenly to see there's something here that doesn't exist. And then the person looks around, well, who's going to create this? And suddenly realize there's nobody around to create this. It looks like it's my job.
Yeah.
And that's how almost every enterprise starts.
Yeah.
And, that's what we're looking to have maintained with our source work, that energy of passion and everybody loving from that, what they do from that passion. And the misfortune is that so many get lost because they get concerned about the money, get concerned about all sorts of structures and strategies that very often experts tell them that they need to fulfill. And if that results in losing their contact with their vision, the whole enterprise starts to go downhill. So that's unfortunately too often at what we're seeing.
Yeah.
But
so
that would apply to. It would be interesting to see what these global capability centers are up to.
Yeah. I guess that, this sense of staying connected to the source and that money is like a natural outflow of that and not in the reverse order, which is how most enterprise today is looking at growing, like, looking at the whole money angle of it and then trying to match their vision to that, to generate that kind of.
Yeah. I'd love to share on something on that because we're, even on my field, we're, everybody is constantly challenged with this because we've all been educated and we've been embodying, whether we like to think it, where we have great values and visions. There's something in our bodies that are still integrating that to a certain degree, and almost everybody has it in some way or other because we've all gone through this global education. I'm sure as in India as much as in Switzerland, where we are, pretty wealthy guys and girls. But I just want to share because just yesterday I'm really proud of somebody within my field who has turned down fighting against other team members, a job, an assignment of 300,000 euros because the company that wanted help makes small parts which go into weapons.
Mm.
And she was strong enough to take a stand on that because she says, she actually told everybody Peter is putting out how much money is going into military right now compared to social and ecological concerns right now. And the field is really trying to transform that. There's a red line for me here. And if, I can't stop the team doing this, but if the team wants to continue, I must step back out of it. Now, this is really source work.
Yes.
And to her credit, the leader of the team said, and I'm really touched and proud of this, said, I don't want to lose you. I rather lose 300,000 euros than lose you from my team. This is what source work is about.
It's so powerful. It's like taking a stand and then holding that stand no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I do appreciate it. And it is a beautiful story.
Mm.
So then what would you say is, I'm sure that this person, of course, they may have associated with you, so they've probably, been able to step into their own power to be able to take
Absolutely.
a stand for sure. But what would you say is this relationship of the inner work that a leader, an individual must do to be able to hold this energy?
So this is one of my conditions for all the practitioners in my field, because none of us are perfect, and I like to refer to not just to our inner work, but to I prefer it's simpler. I talk about our pathologies. And we
Say
all
that.
have our pathologies.
Okay. One more new word. Yeah.
So we all have our pathologies. We all have our work to do. So one of the conditions for my practitioners is that, if they're ever triggered, wherever they're triggered, allergic to other people or other things. And I use the word because we use this frequently in my field, where you project parts of yourselves externally.
Mm.
My people are trained to do the reclamation work so that they don't put it outside themselves. They have to do the inner work. If they don't, they can't be part of the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's a constant, everybody is constantly developing. And one of the beauties, Amrita, is every time when we meet occasionally in person, which we're doing my core people, we're meeting in 10 days time, a couple of weeks time. I see the quality of our togetherness grows and grows and grows. And I see the quality that they're able to offer into the fields in which they are assigned is just growing and growing. And this is something which has been like part of my vision all the time. So we have a growing quality of practitioner work and practitioner field. And we're still really small, but this is what this I feel has an impact beyond what one can see externally. Just individuals doing their necessary inner work. That's what this is about when you refer to inner work.
Thank you. It's you say when you say that you're small, I don't believe that at all, because I feel the depth of your work and what you're creating. I feel that none of us can even imagine the possibility of what that is generating through the work that you have envisioned. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. I know that we're reaching the top of our hour and there are a number of questions that are coming in. But before I move to the questions, I just would invite you to share that from all your 40 years of work, if there's one source principle that you would invite all of us to contemplate on deeply now, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to take the luxury of having two.
Okay.
but well, I mean, the one that is most fought over, I would say, and creates the most resistance is the first one, that every single initiative has just one single source. And you can't imagine the amount of discussions in the world about that. But, you know, people call me dogmatic now about that. And I accept that I am dogmatic about it. I have no problem with being dogmatic because there is so much resonance, so much experience, in my research. I started researching with that, with a light hypothesis about it in 2009. So, we've been going for 17 years. And in my research, what I always insist is that if people come up with objections, I have no resistance to the objections, but I want them to produce the evidence. And, I will change my dogma immediately I have empirical evidence that what I'm putting out is wrong. So I've been inviting since 2009 people to come up and show me how it works with more than one source. And my condition is that they say, well, we can have a shared vision and a shared purpose. And we founded this together with this shared vision. And I said, well, who's the source? And they go, well, none of us, because we all had this shared vision together. So I say, show me 5 years down the line that you're all still there working on your same shared vision. This invitation has been going out since 2009. I haven't had one example come back yet. So I don't deny that this might be the case for the future, but at least at our present level of consciousness, it's quite far from those who are hanging on and insisting on this, what I call an ideology, which is not yet empirically proven. So that's the one thing which is probably the most important. The other thing, which I've really already said, is, which I feel is important right now, more important than previously, is just this what we talked about before, the hierarchy. Reclaiming and rehabilitating, reinstating this other notion of hierarchy. I feel this is at the forefront of what I'm putting out right now. And I hardly dare say, but as I'm talking to you, I dare say it. And, at the risk of creating a lot more allergy, but why not? Ultimately reinstating patriarchy. But patriarchy in a really good sense of patriarchy, because it's the same thing. Patriarchy in the sense that we know it, and so many people are thinking of it, has done so much damage right now in colonialism, etc., etc. I understand. But there is this other aspect of patriarchy, and I come from a family of one of my family cousins is here right now. We come from a patriarchal enterprise, actually, which had very, very good aspects of patriarchy, looking after the workers, building homes for them, etc., etc., etc. And, I wouldn't like that aspect to be forgotten and thrown out, because that's the risk of this allergy, that we throw out good aspects with the bad. So this is the first time I've mentioned this, but I feel safe enough to mention it here with you, Amrita, even if it's challenging.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the love that I feel for you is allowing me to stay open to this aspect of both hierarchy. Yes, I mean, reclaiming hierarchy, not just staying with the sacred order, but that piece. As you share this, I'm facilitating a retreat in October, and one of the themes that I was opening to explore is patriarchy and hierarchy. So you offering me this is really going to inform that retreat for sure. In which way, I don't know, but I will definitely stay open to both these ideas that you brought, because coming from you, it seems that it comes from a sense of love, sacredness, and positivity, and I will stay open to that as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for
Bless you.
sharing your wisdom. I, of course, have had prepared to ask you so many more aspects, but there are no questions here, and I would like to, to give others to have their voice here
Yeah.
as well. And if there's time, I will come back with my long list.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bless you,
Thank you
Amrita.
so much.
So, yes, wonderful. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Amrita. What a wonderful, wonderful hour full of inspiration. And I can see that there are a number of very nice questions that have been posed on the chat here. So maybe it would be nice to, if you want to unmute yourself, we can just go in the order in which they're posed. So we'll follow the sacred order of Isha. If
Yes,
you would like to unmute yourself and maybe ask the question.
sure. Thank you, Mark. And hi, Peter. Hi, Amrita. Thank you
Hello.
for insightful conversation and still a lot of open questions, as a lot of people are mentioning, especially with the keywords that you're bringing up, for us again. So one question that I had for you was that, especially when we are looking at encouraging innovation and people to think without compartmentalization of ideas or processes, let's say, um, how do we really look at source principles in such scenarios?
So the process of having ideas and brainstorming ideas, many people come up with almost the same ideas, or apparently even exactly the same ideas. But what we're looking at with the source and source principles, what I call source principles, is who actually takes the first risk, who's taken the first step for the manifestation of the idea, because that is key.
Got
And
that.
we're looking at the signals there, because the person who does that is always taking a risk. We're in a group and we all have the same idea. Who dares to actually say, well, look, I'm going to do this. Would you like to come in and join me? And, the other people might say, well, who the hell do you think you are? Or, you're stealing my idea. This was my idea. It wasn't yours and you're stealing. So all sorts of things can crop up. But for it to realize somebody has to take that first step. And that's what we're referring to when we refer to a source person.
Got
Does
that.
that respond?
Yes, it helps a lot. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
So Neha, would you like to go next?
Hi. Thank you so much, Amrita, Peter, for this very wonderful session. It's been really enlightening. My question is, how does one discern whether one is truly the source for a piece of work, or a highly invested helper? Especially when the helper is carrying a lot of emotional responsibility for the outcome of that particular idea. And once that distinction is clear, how does one renegotiate responsibility, power, money?
Okay, there are about 3 questions in that, but thank you, Neha. So, you must tell me whether I'm interpreting your question, the first part, correctly. It would be like you're a co-founder of something, and you're not sure whether you're the source of.
Or a senior person working with the source.
Yes. Is the source clear that they are the source?
The source is clear. Yes.
Okay. So what is the question exactly now?
So now, let's say that the individual is someone who is highly invested in the project along with the source.
Yeah.
And because of that emotional investment that the individual has, the individual also ends up, let's say if the project does not do well, how does the individual dissociate themselves from, some part of that not being attributed to them because they do not, own it fully? And how
Okay.
does one person renegotiate
Yeah.
terms?
So this is where, I referred to the fields before. You see, the way you look at this is key. So if you look at it in terms of fields, you have the global source who's 100% responsible for their field. And you have the person who we call a subsource or a specific source is actually 100% responsible for the field within the global field. Now, how does that work? Why does that work? It works because if you understand, people who are attracted into the global field are not there actually to realize the global source's vision. This is important. They're there to realize their own vision. And they're attracted into the global source's field because they want to realize their vision. So the specific source needs to decide whether the best place to realize their own vision is going to remain within the global source's field, or whether they need to take themselves out because they'll realize it better elsewhere.
Wow.
So they are not responsible for the global source's success or non-success. But the chances are that if they are realizing their project well in the global sources field, this is likely to be of help to the global source in realizing his or her field. That's how it works. So does that answer that question more or less?
Yes, it does. Yes.
So it's the clarity on the responsibility which is key here.
And how does the second part of my question, which is how does one renegotiate responsibility, power, and money in that situation then? When they realize
this is the inner work that Amrita was talking about. So the person probably needs to ask themselves, so my definition of power, my definition, is just the ability to act. So if you're not feeling capable of action for some reason, it's something to do with your relationship to power. And in my field, we have various processes which help to deal with a situation like that very simply. So if you're in contact with that person, to just cut what I'm saying short, you can suggest to that person to we use phrases in my work. And the phrases would be, I'm powerful with and without, it could be money in this case, if we're talking about financial success. So I'm powerful with and without money, or I'm powerful with and without debt, if the situation is in debt, so that you don't lose your power in these situations. But also the other side, and this is probably even stronger, to be able to say I'm powerless. So the person can say to themselves, I'm without power, I'm powerless, and I give myself permission to be powerless. And allow that to be embodied.
Yeah.
Can you feel into that? Does that make sense to you?
Yes. So when the action, sometimes you may not hold the full weight of the action. So
that's right. That's right. So you need to choose to be powerless where you are powerless. And there's a paradox in there, because if you choose to be powerless where you are powerless, do you know what you'll experience? power. And you won't be able to figure out, am I powerless or am I in power right now? So these are the kind of processes that we use to help with the inner work.
Thank you so much. I think this was wonderful. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. Really wonderful question and great insight, Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Luca, you have a very interesting question there.
Yeah, but I'm noticing my brain being rewired as we are in this call. So thank you for this, Peter. This is really enlightening. So my question is about I'm seeing many companies that have been founded by one person, let's call it the hero founder, and they want to just transition into decentralized ecosystems or self-managing networks. And I'm seeing a lot of focus on the material part, so shares, how this should work, and not enough focus on the source energy. So these hero leaders say, I will stay as an elder and be sure that things do not go wrong, but I'm not seeing any kind of active subsourcing or passing the source to someone else, because in a way they want to avoid to have another hero leader in the new structure. So I don't know if there is a question in this, but maybe the question is, how should they approach not just the material part, but the source part in a way that does not create another hero leader in the new company?
So, this kind of question we need to really address by having the person themselves in the room almost. But you're talking about hero leader, and there's something around that whole phraseology here. I don't know if the person you're thinking of sees themselves as a kind of hero leader that they don't want to be, or something like that. So, and you're talking about a succession or a flattening of a hierarchy. It's difficult to know exactly what you're referring to here to answer well your question. You're obviously thinking of a specific situation.
Yes, I am.
Are you involved in the situation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, but are you the hero leader?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Okay. So we can look at your situation quickly. What are you facing in this situation that you would like to resolve?
So what I'm facing is that again, there is no care about the source energy. So there's a lot of attention on the material side. And the idea is that if there is a committed group of people that is really passionate, it will just work. And I'm sensing that this is not reality, because there is a source energy that needs to be handled, and it's not at the moment.
So what you're referring to, are you in contact with the source person themselves? Can you talk to them?
Yes. Yeah.
So what's really happening is that they're not taking their role properly as 100% responsibility. So we see this quite often. So they're hoping that other people in their concern will take some responsibility which is actually theirs. And that's what you're actually describing. So the best one can do is try and re-responsibilize the source themselves to take their full responsibility. And if that's not possible, in your position, you need to be looking, in my view, at what your vision is for your life and your responsibility, and make a decision at some point how long you will stay in that entity if there is no movement. So that, there are many we encounter many people in this kind of position. where the sources are not really ready or willing to take their full responsibility. And very often, even there may be other people who look as if they're the sources, like the what I call the number two sometimes, the first person who's called in. So the source persons are very often, quite frequently, introverts who are not into getting into operations and actually shouldn't get into operations. But they need to hold the vision. They need to hold the vision, and they need to define what the next step is for the whole entity. And if they don't do that, or if they think that somebody else should do that, that's when the whole thing gets tricky. Because if they don't take their place fully, nobody can take their place within their system. That's the problem.
Right. Thank you.
Pleasure. Mark and Rita.
There's still
Yeah,
another.
maybe we can take one more question. Something
Yeah.
about patriarchy, perhaps, which came up here. Marie Hendrick and CV. If you would like to, this is the first reveal that Peter has made. But if there's anything you would like to ask around that, why not?
Marie, come on.
Yeah, please. My God. In different, that I evolve in different fields. Yours, Peter, but others. And let me say it bluntly, and a lot of reclamation work to do there, probably. But for me, we are in deep shit. Because we have put patriarchy, at the power or something since 3,000 years. So, wow. Of course, I can hear the positive aspects of the divine, masculine, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the reality is that we haven't let a lot of matriarchy power, happen. And so, yeah, I would be really, really interested in you explaining to us, probably in a longer session, where you're coming from, because somehow the hierarchy part, now I'm following you. But the patriarchy, I still have a lot of things to untie, probably.
Yeah. Well, you see, and Marie, Marie, we know each other. You know that I tend to be extreme radical, 20 years before time. So, I've dared to do this in Amrita's wonderful holding and Mark's wonderful holding, to put this out for the first time in this kind of session. And I expect a lot of pushback here. But, it's the same as with hierarchy. I think the danger of just putting it down is throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And we need to do more finer differentiation of what we mean. Like, with the hierarchy, people are targeting the structure of organization and trying to flatten it, thinking that they're going to resolve it that way, which it won't. And I have a sense that with patriarchy, trying to do away with patriarchy and raise up matriarchy is also going to go the same way ultimately. So, but the target for the hierarchy is actually to transform the relationship to power. And there's probably something quite similar related to patriarchy, which has more to do with the reconciliation of masculine and feminine somewhere, I believe. But I wouldn't like to get into more detail about that because that's a whole much bigger discussion. But thank you for raising it.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So Amrita, maybe a next session on that. I don't know how this works.
I know that I want to be part of that session whenever it happens. I don't know if it'll happen through me, but I will definitely want to be part of it.
Well, you're inviting it, I think, with your retreat or whatever you were referring to earlier.
Yeah.
So it's great. Great work.
There's one more question from Murad, and And
Yeah, it's actually a very interesting question. Yeah, I would love to hear, like, very briefly what your perspective is on that, Peter.
Okay.
Yes. So hi, Amrita. Hi, Peter. Thanks for the opportunity
Oh, hello,
for
Murad.
sharing this. Hi, Peter. Yeah, I'm in the middle of launching a startup, which is given my solo entrepreneur journey is heavily relying on machines and AI agents, which are AI workers. And obviously, I always loved the principle of source, which I tried to apply in previous jobs with dealing with real humans. But now the challenge is I need to deal with pieces of algorithm, which are, if you want to visualize it, they are text files where you describe the role description of what this piece of software needs to do. So it's very similar to what we do in companies when we hire someone and we tell them your job is to do A, B, C, D, etc. But the challenge I now have, so I understood all the pieces on me, which are dealing with my pathologies, my doubt, and all, all the work I need to do on myself, which I'm still working on. But when I deal with these machines and when I have to describe them, my vision and what I want them to do, I was trying to extract the gems or the value of the source principles to transfer them into this world, which is now hybrid between humans and pieces of software. So if this could take another Zoom call, so I just wanted to introduce this piece and launch it in the
But
room and have
well,
it have it.
I just like, I'd love to bounce back, Murad,
Yeah.
and see if you can get your AI agents to do inner work that Amrita
Yeah, I
is
mean
talking about.
that's a very good point. I mean, I wrote today for my company a document which is the constitution of the what I want everybody to know about the boundaries of our work. But yes, so that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Is how can we? I think it's very important for humanity because as we have more and more of these pieces of software out there, we want them to be aligned to our objectives and not get them to do silly things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so transferring inner work to a piece of software is an interesting challenge. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, and get them to work, get them to do therapy work with each other.
Yeah, that's great. I haven't thought about that. Thank you. So I might delegate to them. One will become the coach of the others or something like that. Yeah, I'll see.
And other people in this room probably don't know, but Murad has created his work is actually helping you to create your song with AI. So he creates these wonderful songs, music, where you sing your song. So
yeah, I mean the vision evolved a little bit, so it's not to compete with singers or with artists, etc. But basically, if you want to visualize, you write your journal or you do your inner work or whatever situation you are in, and you can transfer any of those in song, in music. The reason I think it's important is neuroscience is telling us that when we listen to songs, our brain are animated. So it's a musical way of doing your inner work and getting everything that's inside reflected to you back by a piece of software. So
it's brilliant.
Wow.
thanks for
Amazing.
doing the advertisement slot for me, Peter. That's helpful.
Wonderful idea. Wonderful
Pleasure.
idea.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
there's a lot of energy here, I feel, to continue the conversation, which I think, would be lovely to do. But for now, I would just like to thank Amrita and Peter for the amazing session, really brilliant conversation, insights. I think all of us have really benefited from that. So big thank you to both of you and to everyone for showing up, for the questions, for your contribution, and for taking this out into your worlds, right? And that's how it ripples out. So anything you would like to say in closing, Amrita, Peter?
I'd just like to double that, Mark, to thank everybody attending, because even though I don't see everybody, the listening is what creates the speaking. And I felt a very strong listening in this room. So I'd just like to thank everybody here, and of course yourself and Love you, Amrita.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And really, thanks. Thank you. I really see that convergence through this group that has come together today. And I hope that we can continue on this journey and have many more such conversations. But thank you for making the time and space to be with us today. And thank you so much, Peter. I'm going back with a lot more love and some more vocabulary as well.
Thank you, Peter.
All the best.
Thank you, Peter.
Bye,
Bye for now.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Go well.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.